Go Go Gadget podcast.
Got to hit all the buttons. Too many buttons to hit still.
Did you see there's some buttons on Stream Deck? It's a Stream Deck plugin. That is not the Team Stream Deck plugin, which is re-released, and in my opinion, works much better than it did a month ago when it was first released. But there's another plugin, Pre-Flight Checklist, that it like puts virtual toggles on your Stream Deck, so you can go in and like toggle stuff as you get your setup. So if you have all the stuff you need to do for the podcast, like turn on the lights and select the right mic and close the blind and mute your monitor speakers and all of that, you can like create a toggle for each one and go through your Stream Deck and toggle switches as you hit your pre-flight checklist.
I just automate all that stuff, so it's a multi-action for me. I just hit one button and it goes doot, 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 and it kicks everything right up the stack. Yeah, it's magical. Highly recommend.
But then when yes, I should. But then when your script breaks, you gotta go troubleshoot it.
Yeah. There's stuff that you got to do there, but
yes, but that's
it is what it
that's
is.
my pre-flight checklist. Although it's arguably most of it is just habit now. You would like to think, except for maybe selecting the right camera. But anyways, that is my Stream Deck plugin of the day. Aside from the Teams one, which have you tried the Teams one? Has it been working better for you?
I have. It does work better. I had to go through and regenerate all the API keys, which is still weird, strange, broken, only appears in the client sometimes, inconsistent. But once you get it set up, it does just kind of work and do what it needs to do. So now I can go and do my waves and my hand races and all the things just from a simple button press.
And you can send me hearts and Teams.
I can. If that's really what you want, we can sit here and do that all day. But
I don't need hearts and Teams. The one I was disappointed though that's gone. Did you see they pulled the record button from it?
No, I didn't notice that one. I wonder if that has to do with some of the compliance stuff. But then again, it wouldn't, because people can get their compliance on their own way. I don't know.
Yeah, I wondered about that too. If it had to do with compliance or if it had to do with the remember the feature where it's like exclusive? We talked about it a few weeks ago. It wasn't exclusive recording permissions, but essentially every user in the meeting has the ability to accept or decline recording. And I didn't know if it had something to do with that, but again, the host is still triggering the record and they're just accepting or denying the permission to record. Or maybe it's part of the bug and why it all got pulled for a month and they couldn't figure out or fix whatever they needed to, so they just re-released it without record. I don't know. But
your guess is as good as mine.
That's the one I actually wanted, because I like just being able to hit a button and record my meetings, and it wasn't there. Oh well.
You can still hotkey it though.
I could still hotkey it. I could set my meetings to just record automatically, or I could just use the UI and hit the record button in the Teams client itself. But we ended, Scott, last week. We said we were going to take at least one listener question, and we have a listener question in here, and this was from a pirate in our Discord chat. That is part of his username. And he is, at his company, they are looking at this shift from Microsoft partners, or shift with Microsoft partners, which, let me tell you, this is, as a Microsoft partner, I have opinions on this that we will not get into. But the amount of certifications that are now required for solution partner designations, which is taking the place of the silver and gold partnership, is now you have these solution partner designations. He wanted to use Teams to set up study groups, share study resources, etc. They haven't really done this before at their company. They use Teams for all sorts of other things. And they were wondering if anyone had any success with this type of thing in the past in terms of like using Teams for study groups. They've gone in, started setting up some different teams and set up like channels for different certifications. So whatever those Microsoft certifications are, have a different channel for each one, where they included stuff like the PDF study guides, Microsoft lists where people can add links to trainings, articles they found, other useful information, all of that. And then he was just, anybody got any other ideas on ways you could leverage different solutions, different stacks, just helping kind of prepare fellow employees in this case for certifications.
So this is an interesting one. I don't know how much time people spend in Microsoft documentation, but I feel like I spend way too much time living in there. Did you know that the Teams team, as a part of the Teams for Education component, they have a whole, you know how they do Teams for Education? And I always forget about this. So my wife's an assistant principal, and her school system is a Teams subscriber. So she's always coming to me asking me questions about things in Teams where I go, I didn't know Teams could do that. Like, why is it even set up that way? But they are very good in Teams for Education about giving prescriptive guidance to users, be it teachers or students. So one of the things that they have out there is they actually have an article. It falls under the Student Help Center, and it's ACE Group project in Microsoft Teams. And it kind of walks you through step one. Hey, what would you do? Why would you create a team? What types of channels might you want to have in that team once you get it going? What can you use that team for once it's there? Like the ability to easily kick off group calls. You might want to collaborate on documents. It even goes so far as saying like, hey, go ahead and spin up a OneNote so that you can have a shared note interface as you're going through and doing that. So that was kind of like my first thing. I was like, I think I've seen this before because my wife asked me a question about it. It's like, yeah, sure enough, there's a help doc out there for it. So I think it's a great idea, right? If everybody's licensed for it, it certainly all just kind of comes together and just works. I can think of a couple things that you might want to turn on as like plus ones to say, hey, this team as a study group kind of thing could be a little bit more helpful for everybody. So in addition to something like OneNote for collaborative note-taking, maybe you want to spin up a planner plan to be able to have kind of a shared task board for people. Like, hey, we're going to go and study, like say you're studying for the AZ 104, and there's that component in there about we all need to go learn about RBAC and the difference between a management group and AAD tenant and how it filters down to a subscription, and we can kind of do practical application of identity access management within all these various scopes within Azure. That might just be something like you want to tackle and put out there as a task to everybody, like, okay, we're all going to go learn about this, and then maybe even do like follow-ons for things like have task assignments for let's all go do this lab. There's a bunch of, like, in at least Microsoft certification land, there's a bunch of hands-on labs and things that exist out there. You might want to have links to those or links to GitHub repos, anything like that within the Teams side of the house. So I think there's a whole bunch of different things that you could do there along the way.
Yeah, for sure. And there's another one. So I've contributed to some of these. I don't know, some of these are getting a little outdated, but out on GitHub, from the Build 5.9 guys. We know a couple of the guys over there that do the whole Build 5.9's newsletter, but they have a GitHub repo that I've updated a few exam assessments in there as well before. But it's a whole bunch of spreadsheets where we've essentially gone through those PDFs that this listener referenced, where it has a breakdown of all kind of the high level areas. It gives a percentage of how much of the exam is on a certain topic, and then it breaks down like subtopics within there. In these spreadsheets, you can kind of go in and rank how well you know each one of those topics, and it gives you a little bit of a calculation in terms of, based on how well you know it, how well positioned are you to pass the exam? So being able to put that in there. Maybe link to some of these Excel spreadsheets. They're pretty straightforward to update. If you go in and look at them, again, they're on GitHub, go download it. Update the formulas with some of the new exam stuff. But these we found helpful as well when you're kind of preparing for certain exams. So that's another resource. The listener also said, so he's actually chatting right now with us too in Discord. He's part of our Discord membership. And he also said that he created a Power App in Teams to track certifications that people have, track which certifications people are working on, and even find like what other users are working on the same certifications, so that they can kind of buddy up, find someone else in the company that's working on the same certification, working on the same certification path, so they can work together and study it. And then even added a part in it where the leaders can see how they're progressing toward the different solution partners. So these solution partner areas, you need so many people to have certain certifications, some at a basic level, some at a more advanced level. So he built in a whole analytics part so they can even track who has what exams, where are we, what do we still need, who's working on it, who's not working on it, that type of stuff. So that's kind of a cool Power App to build and help track all of that within that same area.
Yeah, you can build it, or if you're licensed for it, you can also use something like Viva Learning to do that. Like you could track and do assignments of, hey, go take this certification and do there, and be able to track that within the Viva stack as well, if you wanted to keep it all in-house without having to build an app. But then there's the licensing component of it. And like you said, the partner side, the ever-changing landscape of which certification do I need to get this month, week, year, whatever it happens to be, to carry things through and get them to where they need to be.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else you could do. I mean, you could always kind of along the whole Teams thing. I don't know that I'd stray too much outside of that, especially if you are a partner working in Teams. Like, why build stuff outside of Teams to do it? But you can also put YouTube channels, embed YouTube videos in those Teams channels. I know there's a fair amount of YouTube videos, different people that have created video content towards certain exams too. I think, at least on the M365 side of things, I think Vlad has done a ton of videos based around certain exams. I know there's some things in Pluralsight, to your point with Viva Learning, Pluralsight, LinkedIn Learning, some of those that integrate with Viva Learning based on your licensing there. So being able to incorporate some of that stuff in as well could be helpful. But I like the whole concept of let's just create a channel for each one of these exams so people can share information around prepping for them and studying for them, obviously without violating any NDAs that you sign at the beginning of taking these exams. But yeah, it's kind of a cool idea.
Yeah. So since we're on the topic, I think maybe a couple of other resources that are out there. So you mentioned YouTube videos. In Azure Land, there's a Microsoft Cloud Solution Architect. His name is John Saville. I always mess up his name, and I'm so sorry. But he does these amazing, just free YouTube videos. So he calls them his master classes, and they kind of take you end to end through any number of things. So he has like an Azure masterclass. He has specific classes that he refreshes regularly around the Azure certifications. So I would kind of recommend those to everyone. Another one that I've seen, and I don't know if you've seen this, if you go to learnazure.app, there's a it's an Android app, it's an App Store app, like iOS App Store. It also has a mobile web app and a Windows Store app, and it has coverage for a bunch of different exams across the Azure and M365 stack as well. And that's all out there and free with, sample questions, all that good kind of stuff. Like if you don't want to go and pay for that or have it out there, and you're just looking for like free resources. Hey, let's get started with this.
Got it. Have you noticed some of the exams? I don't remember if we talked about this or not. Some of the exams in Learn, the exam prep and Learn and Learning Paths actually have practice exams built right into Microsoft Learn as well.
They do. I find they're hit or miss.
Hit or miss.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like it's like some of the 100 and 900 levels tend to have them, not so much those middle of the road, like the 300, 400, 500 level ones.
Which is, I think sometimes like you're very better off going for community supported things in this case. Like my experience has been that they are kept more up to date sometimes than the Microsoft material, which is kind of sad, kind of scary, but it is what it is kind of thing. The other thing that I would encourage here is everybody learns different ways, right? So you want to make sure that, hey, if you're going to build a compendium of resources, that has coverage for everything from videos to documents, like certainly go ahead and do all that. I also would not discount hands-on learning. So I'll put a link in the show notes to the Azure Administrator, the AZ-104 repo out on GitHub. But if you went to Microsoft and you took a certification course, like say you're a Microsoft customer and you're getting like a Microsoft trainer to come in and talk to you and teach you like a 4-day course on the AZ-104, all those labs that you would do as part of the course, just out on GitHub, sitting there ready to go. So, go ahead and go through those as well. Like you don't necessarily need to pay for a class to get hands-on. You can totally go spin up a free subscription and get hands-on with one of those things. Like, I when I was running practices around like partners, I would always make sure that my folks were getting hands-on with the technology. Like the certification for the most part is just a checkbox. Like anybody can, I really think anybody can go and like, if they really want to, and depending on like how ethical they are about it, like, you can just go grab a brain dump and pay for it and pass that test. I don't think it's, the right thing to do, but there's certainly people that do it. And there's lots of partners that treat the checkbox as just that. It's a checkbox and it's a way into the system. But ultimately, like if you're building out a consultancy or a practice around this where you have to do delivery, then you have to get out there and get people hands-on with it. And hopefully you're doing that in a structured way. You're not going to somebody and saying like, hey, go learn static web apps. Like, somebody might be able to do that, but most people won't be able to. You're going to want to give them some kind of a structured path to get in there and get hands-on with it.
Yeah, another thing, going into different learning styles, something that we've done a lot of, and I've done some essentially paid exam prep engagements where it's going in and working with 20, 30 students for several hours to just kind of go over the topics that are on the exams. Again, being very careful not to violate any NDAs and stuff, but going over topics. But then we've also taken the time to go in and write sample questions. Kind of sitting down through the topics and thinking of the way Microsoft tends to write exams and coming up with practice questions. And then there's software that we've used, it's Mentimeter, and actually created, you can do it with an online where you as the presenter have access to the questions, all of that. You give students a link and they can go in and see the question and then select the right answer. And then you compare, like 10 people thought this was the right answer, 15 people thought this was the right answer. And then afterwards, actually sit in and discuss as a group of why is something the right answer? Why is it the wrong answer? Why did you answer this way versus that way? And it facilitates more than just the clicking a checkbox and answering a question, but really starting to get people to think about why they answered a question a certain way or discussing it. Of why is something the right answer versus the wrong answer, or why would you choose this technology versus that technology in an area? Granted, this takes more time. It is not an insignificant amount of work to go in and create 20 or 25 practice questions like that. But I've found discussing questions and answers with a group of people really helps you not only practice, but understand how you might need to think or answer different questions.
Yeah, 100%. And, if you're looking, I think a good place to find those questions is something like Microsoft Learn, like specifically the Learn modules that are out there. So there's a bunch of written text kind of modules that you can do as well. And if you go into those modules, particularly within the learning paths for one of these, so again, you do the AZ-203, AZ-104, one of the M365 certs, whatever it happens to be, they will typically have some form of knowledge assessment associated with them. And, hey, multiple choice, select your answer kind of thing. And if you get it wrong, it'll tell you, oh, here's why you might have got it wrong. So you might want to do like, don't reinvent the wheel, basically. Like you don't have to go out and write all these things from scratch, but there's a whole ton of resources out there, I think, that can help you, rationalize what you want to do and how you want to approach it. I think the thing, like I said, that I've realized over time is if you're going to give people structured learning, you have to give them multiple ways to do that learning. Like for me, I'm somebody who I'd rather read a book than watch a video. But there's a whole bunch of people that would rather watch a video, or there's a whole bunch of people that want to just listen to it in audio. Like they might point an audio reader at it and let it spill back a bunch of documentation to them, things like that. So, you have to recognize that about people in teams as well. Like everybody's going to learn differently. They might come and learn at their own pace. And then you come back to it as a team, review, move on to the next step. But I love the idea of like, hey, let's structured go through, approaching a certification. Like here's a module or a component of that. We're going to take a week. Everybody's going to learn together. Maybe you host some office hours and you run those meetings in teams. You got a shared calendar, all that good kind of stuff. And then, you move on and you have a good day.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Great ideas. And if you're in Discord too, there is a bunch of lively discussion going on and some examples of what different people have done for creating teams, setting up these channels, etc. So, with that, should we move on to a new topic?
New topic. Let's do it.
A new topic? Should we talk about copilots?
Let's talk about Copilot. Copilot is it's the new Copilot, not to be confused with GitHub Copilot and all the other Copilots that already existed.
Or the Power Platform Copilot that already existed as well. This is the Microsoft 365 Copilot. And I have seen more discussion around the proper way to spell, hyphenate, and case the word Copilot in the last 24 hours since this was announced than I have ever seen in my life. I even saw a tweet from somebody today about there may be a proper way to spell Copilot, but when it comes to Microsoft Copilot, this is the proper way to spell it.
Yes. So even in the blog post that announces it, like, hey, this is introducing Microsoft 365 Copilot, capital C Copilot, dash your Copilot for work, all lowercase, no hyphens, anything like that. It's a wonderful thing. I think it's going to be really cool. We talked a little bit about Chat GPT and some of the things that were going on with the new Bing service and all of that a couple weeks ago, and a little bit about GitHub Copilot there. Like, I don't know if you've had a chance to get hands-on with that service, but GitHub Copilot being an AI that can help you write code. Like, hey, I have this simple function or method that I need to author. It needs to do this, this, and this. Like, help me put that program together. It can absolutely do those kinds of things. And GitHub Copilot is... It's got a little bit less of like the disinformation thing going on than something like Chat GPT does, I think. But at the same time, like, it's like Stack Overflow. You can't just copy and paste it and take that it's going to work. You still have to go back and vet it, kind of thing. So tell us a little bit about this Copilot. So we have Chat GPT, like, go ahead and search and do your AI over there. We have things like GitHub Copilot, help me write code. What is Microsoft 365 Copilot?
So Microsoft 365 Copilot is taking something similar, I would say, to what we have in GitHub or ChatGPT, where you're essentially giving it, go do this for me. And it uses AI, whether it's ChatGPT, OpenAI, it's using that in the background to perform different actions, primarily in the Office applications. So in the announcement, and you can go watch the release too, they did like a whole 1 hour video release yesterday from when we were, no, not yesterday. I don't know, the 15th, March 15th, I think it was the actual date. But it's primarily Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Teams is where Microsoft 365 Copilot is going to be. And it's very much, I would say, taking the Chat GPT type experience and putting it into these different tools. So in Word, telling it to draft a 2-page project proposal is one of the examples they give, or draft a policy about Microsoft 365 security. It will go in and start writing that, but it also can do things like, after you write it, let's say you actually do write something from scratch, or you take one of these drafts, because again, my mindset is you're still treating these as drafts. It's not going to create a finished, polished paper for you. But go in and tell it to take this paragraph and make it more concise. I have tendencies, I can get rambly sometimes in my paragraphs, but make it more concise, or change the tone of the document to be more casual or more formal. Taking actions within these different applications, where you can essentially tell it to go do something and it will. Excel, you can say, go create charts on this data, or arrange my data in a certain way, filter my data in a certain way, and create different models for me based on this data. PowerPoint, I think you even started to see some of this
Microsoft
already,
365.
where it can do different designs, it can reformat it. There's already, I think it's PowerPoint Designer, where it uses a little bit of AI once you create a slide and says, maybe you want to arrange it this way or rearrange your slide that way. So things like that in PowerPoint, Outlook. This one's my favorite one, Scott, right here. They gave this example. Summarize the emails I missed while I was out last week. I can now come home from vacation and ask Outlook to give me a summary of everything I missed. Hopefully it works, because frankly, that would be really nice, especially if you can say, summarize everything I missed and then delete all the emails.
Yeah, I could have used that today after being off for 2 days. I walked in this morning and I looked at my mailbox and I just kind of threw up my hands and said, I need to block my calendar and take the whole day off to do nothing but email triage. So I think like there is genuine value in a bunch of that stuff, and the value almost doesn't become the AI model. It's that the AI model really has access to all this data. So if you give it access to your mailbox, and people are doing things where you live in the Microsoft ecosystem, it's very likely that you might have gotten an email with a link to a spreadsheet in it. So it can help you understand all that without you having to go into Outlook and do some complicated search like, hey, I was waiting for that email from Ben and he said he was going to send me a spreadsheet. So let me do a search from Ben, has attachments. Yes. Like what type of file was it? Anything like that, and have it all bring it back to you. So I think that's all like business productivity goodness. And I'm totally behind the summarization components of all of this. Like I love that idea, and kind of the simplicity there, like, and really making everybody's lives a little bit simpler. Some of the things where these are going to write text for you or do things like that, like I don't know, that stuff still scares me a little bit. Like just knowing that computers are computers and they're only going to ever do really what humans have programmed them to do. like
Yes.
no matter how far we get with some of this stuff. So that's a little bit weird. Like I've seen some demos, and I had a coworker showing me the other day some of the what is it? The Viva sales stuff, the basically the Copilot integration for Dynamics, and
Okay.
it's kind of cool, kind of nifty. But I don't know that I want the little AI in the background writing each one of my emails in just like wholesale, and me really getting too lazy about it and saying like, I'm not going to check that. Like it wrote 2 of them and it was good, so I send the 3rd one, and it ends up that it's just completely off the rails.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Like I've used it again to generate some drafts with ChatGPT, but I am definitely much more excited about some of the summarization stuff. Some people mentioned too in the Discord chat, like being able to speed up note taking, give me a summary of the notes from this meeting that I had in Teams, or scan my inbox and create me a task list of everything that I should do this week based on emails I've gotten. Because I know I'm guilty of that. I get an email and I forget about it and I don't add it to a task list. And all of a sudden it's like, I forgot to do that. Having the AI be able to kind of sort through some of that stuff and summarize it, create a task list for me. I think there's some real benefit there. And along with this, they also introduced business chat. And I think there's some subtle differences here. Like Copilot is a little bit more, it's more productized focused. You'll have Copilot and Teams and Word and all of that. Then you also have business chat that is tying the OpenAI models into the Microsoft Graph, and it's actually kind of taking AI then and working across everything: documents, presentations, emails, calendars, notes, and contacts. So bringing all those sources together, where now instead of just summarizing my emails, you're saying summarize everything. From, and this another example from a customer escalation. So I got chats, emails, documents about an outage last night. Give me a summary across all of my data about what happened, or update me on a particular project where you're maybe pulling from PowerPoint presentations and emails and Word documents. I think, again, in that summarization, there's some benefit there. And I mean, business chat, yeah, it's using AI to generate it, but Graph already has access to all of this stuff. So it's not like you're necessarily opening this up to anything new. It's just a new Microsoft 365 service working with your data. Another one I saw, Scott, this one could be cool. And I was chatting with somebody else that kind of brought this up, is you write a document or a PowerPoint presentation, and how often do you have to go back and then like put it in your template? You forgot to start with a template, or you have a certain template you need to follow. If you could tell the Copilot to say, okay, now go take this presentation or this Word document or this text and put it in my company template. Stuff like that, or format all of my slides the same way. A PowerPoint slide where you have like 10 different fonts because you pulled stuff from different places, and your themes are all jacked up, but using AI to go in and kind of reformat your documentation for you in that company standard template or with those company standards on it.
Yeah, I think there's real value in this stuff. And I know there's all the talk about, how disruptive this is all going to be. Honestly, I think it's kind of fun, like when new technologies like this are coming and they're just like going like boom, 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 right? Like we started with Chat GPT and GPT-3 and, Dolly and Stable Diffusion and just all these things that can generate everything from text to video to images, and it's moving at this like really great pace. It's like the early days of CPUs, and like Moore's law is just like cranking right along. Like we're improving, and that part of it's super fun. I don't know how long it all takes to bake out though. Like it'll be pretty interesting, I think, to revisit some of this stuff in, a year or 2 years and see what really baked out, what stuck, what just turned out to be straight up bad idea. Like, oops, maybe we shouldn't have done that. I think it's an interesting time for everybody trying to figure it out. Certainly, you've got OpenAI out there. You've got Microsoft investing heavily in OpenAI. You've got Google with Bard. You've got all these different kind of models kicking along. I think ethics is going to be a huge thing. I thought it was interesting that at the same time, basically the same time, Microsoft was announcing that they're doing M365 Copilot. It also came out that they just fired their entire AI ethics team. So it's like, I don't know if that's the best time to do that, but sure, like, go ahead. That's okay. I do wonder about some of that stuff. Like, now there's no dedicated team just thinking about ethics of these AIs at Microsoft. Like, that's a little scary to me. We've certainly seen where things like chatbots can go off the rails and start out with the best of intentions, and within a week of open user training on the internet, all of a sudden they're like some of the worst racists out there. Like, it's a thing that can happen, and without somebody thinking about it and constantly like poking and prodding and saying, "Hey, should we do this?" I don't know about some of those things and how it all bakes out in the end.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. Yeah, like you said, the whole ethics AI, how this bakes out. On the flip side, I will say other announcements that have come out recently. I think about things like SharePoint Spaces and even some of the mesh stuff. Like, I know Microsoft has a vision for that. This type of stuff, I actually see, at least from my perspective, has more business benefit. I can see a lot more advantages to this. Where some of the other stuff, I'm still struggling a little bit to see, like, do we really need that? I mean, SharePoint Spaces especially, I feel like it was a big deal when it was announced 4 years ago, and it's just kind of fizzled. I mean, maybe it's kind of turned into Mesh in some form or fashion, but this one I actually do. I don't know how long it's going to take. The other thing that'll be really interesting with this is to see what the pricing and licensing for this ends up being. Everything I have seen, OpenAI, AI, all the modeling, training, all of this is not an insignificant cost to run all of this. So what is it going to take, or what types of licenses are going to be required to enable this across your Microsoft 365 stack?
It's not no cost, but I don't know that it's necessarily maybe as expensive as some people are thinking about. So, I would go take a look at the pricing for cognitive services, and ultimately like Chat GPT, GPT 3.5 Turbo, whatever it is part of that cognitive services and Azure OpenAI service offering on the back end. So it does all have public pricing, and it's basically today for things like Dolly. It's cost per 100 images. So every 100 images I'm going to generate, it's this much money. And some of that stuff is more expensive. Like, generating an image or a video is more computationally expensive, more GPU bound than even some of the language models. So like, that stuff gets pretty expensive. Like, I was looking, so East US for Dolly is $2 per 100 images. Like, okay, that could add up pretty quickly, like if I'm doing an image generation as a service kind of thing. But
Yep.
Some of the models, so like ChatGPT is 0.002 cents per 1,000 tokens. So every 1,000 chats, I'm at 0.002 cents. Like, that starts to be not the cheapest thing, but it's probably not highly uneconomical either, especially considering you didn't have to write the AI, train it yourself on all the data that's out there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm curious. Hopefully I would love to see it included. I don't know that we'll get quite that lucky, but hopefully it won't be that high of a barrier to entry. Or maybe it'll be included in my E5 license.
Yeah.
Or my Teams premium license. Or my other add-on license. Or the other add-on license.
It's going to be part of that $150 that you're spending a month already.
I just had to up my license again, Scott. That's a whole nother discussion for another day. Has to do with Teams Room devices and a change Microsoft made to licensing Teams Room devices. Sean said E7 licenses. That would, it's not a bad idea. They should have an E7 license that just includes everything, so I don't have to pay for 5 different add-ons.
Just make it as
totally
expensive as you
E7.
can and put it right in front of me, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So, side topic, last thing, I guess, before we go. I could keep talking. I have a couple more things. Did you see in the Chat GPT-4 stuff that they actually put a disclaimer in there that Chat GPT is prone to hallucinations?
Yes, AIs can't hallucinate. It was an interesting choice of verbiage, and a way to describe it. Humans are capable of disassociating and hallucinating, but AI is not so much.
Yeah, it made me laugh. Like, I saw that show up on Twitter. It was like, okay, did they really use hallucinations in AI? And yes, it absolutely says that ChatGPT, be warned, ChatGPT can hallucinate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
Who knew?
It happens, right? You got to watch out for these things. We'll see where it all goes.
Yep. But with that, we should probably wrap up. We've been going for a little bit today.
We should.
I lost track of time.
We are at time.
Yes. Well, thanks, Scott. Interesting discussion all about learning and AI and all of the new technology goodness and learning all about it.
Yeah.
But
as always,
enjoy your weekend.
It was fun. Thanks to everybody who joined us in the chat today. That's always fun as well. Love having you all here, and we'll see you next week.